Okay. Hello. My name is Cassie Sevray. I'm from FRC Team 2220 Blue Twilight. I'm one of the co-captains. My other co-host is Lawrence. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Yeah, my name is Lawrence Salonga. I've also been on Team 2220. This is my third year here because I'm a junior, and the majority of the stuff that I do involves the outreach of the team.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also part of the MTR team. But today we're going to be talking about innovative STEM outreach and reaching the diverse communities. So we're going to be focusing on how to get you guys out more into community and pretty much being able to help everyone around you. So Mrs. Peterson, do you want to switch to our next slide? Okay, we're going to just start off with kind of an introduction of all the people who are participating within the seminar. So if you can, please put your name and team number into the chat so we can kind of get an idea. I also know that I heard that you guys are kind of having a little bit of a competition to see who can participate within these presentations. So don't worry, there's going to be lots of opportunities. Okay, I'll just give you a second. Okay, we can keep going while you guys continue to do that while we kind of go over a little bit more things. Mrs. Peterson, do you want to switch the slide? Okay. Lawrence, do you want to go over some of the objectives of today?
Yeah, so a couple of things we're going to be talking about specifically are just the definition of outreach, right? Like how it's not this, I guess the best way like in my own words, the way I would describe it is just go out there, give people a very good understanding of like why robotics and why STEM means a lot to you, especially like within our own team. And also it's important in the sense that you want people to be involved in this activity.
Yep. And then we're also going to go over the Blue Twilight outreach programs, why outreach is important within the community, kind of like Lawrence was saying. The planning outreach for diverse communities, obviously that's in the title, so that'll be a big portion of our presentation, and then some examples of this, and then how to get contacts, which will give you the ability to plan this outreach. So like I said, we will have opportunities to participate. Mrs. Peterson. Okay, Lawrence, do you want to go?
And we can start off with this, right? So like in terms of outreach, it's not a super hard thing, right? Like every single team has the capability to do it. It doesn't have to be like some grand gesture. It's just going out. That's something where you take as many people are willing from your team and just go out into the community wherever you can and just benefit people outside of simply the sphere of FRC, right? Because we don't want our impact to just be confined within our own team or within like other robotics teams, because we want our impact to go out into the community, and we do that through our outreach.
Yep. And so we can, we'll just briefly go over kind of how our outreach is set up within our own team. We have 4 outreach initiatives that we focus on throughout the year. Our first one is Eagan FIRST Robotics. We'll kind of go into each of these ones a little bit after this, but Eagan FIRST Robotics, Women in Robotics Empowering Sisters, Robots Without Borders, and STEM in Action. So one thing you can note from just looking at these titles, other than Eagan FIRST Robotics, those other 3 ones are all individually focused on reaching diverse communities. So each one focuses on a different group of people that we want to get involved within our community or help. So the first one we'll go over is the Eagan FIRST Robotics. This one is probably not, this one doesn't as apply to this presentation as much, but it focuses on getting teams, starting first teams within our own community. There's first teams at Eagan High School. There's our own FRC team, and this year there is 6 FTC teams. We also made it a mission a couple years ago to be able to get FLL teams in every district elementary school, and we have started an FLL junior community teams in the elementary schools. On top of that, it's also just focusing on starting mentoring and assisting other teams in our school district. So just kind of a general basis. I'll go over this one, and then you can go over the next two, Lawrence.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah. So Women in Robotics Empowering Sisters, or WIRES, focuses on getting more girls involved within STEM. There's some of the different events that we focus on within this initiative is getting out to different local technology companies, holding different panels focused on women in professional STEM careers, and then also just in general making sure that we have female leadership opportunities within our team and outreach to Girl Scouts. So obviously this is an example of having focusing on a diverse community.
And along with that, another one of our major initiatives is our Robots Without Borders program. And to just sum it up really quickly, it's our outreach that focuses on growing first, not just within the US, but actually globally, because one of the teams that we work with often is the Spice Gears, or Team 5883 from Poland. And we haven't been able to do it much recently because of the pandemic, but one of the things that we really like to do is send students from our team over to Poland, because we love doing things there, especially since we've started FLL teams and ran FLL tournaments, and especially just growing first within Poland is one of the really big things that we like to do. We've also worked with our sponsor Thomson Reuters to start the first team in Ukraine, and along with that, we've ran robot camps in southern India, and also at the UN, something that we've done. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 3 or 4 years ago that we've done STEM presentations at the United Nations.
Yeah, I think it was 4 years ago. 3? Yeah.
And then another really big thing that we like to do in terms of our outreach is our STEM in Action initiative, in which we serve specifically the underserved groups within our local community. Just something that we've actually done within the past year is that we've created kits for for students whose neighborhoods have been affected by like the George Floyd protests. So that's normally not a group that you hear about talked about a bunch, but we've done our part in trying to help them. And other things that we've done is work on free camps at our school, and also just run camps and give STEM kits to people at the local homeless shelter. We do a full day conference at sponsor sites, and we also just have a bunch of free camps that anyone who would be interested in is able to just go at no cost to them, and a couple of examples are listed on there.
So now that we've kind of covered at least kind of what we've done in the past, we want to kind of push this question onto you guys as to who do you think are diverse students, or who do you think you want to target within your community in trying to get them more involved? And why is it important to do outreach in diverse communities? Why is there such a push to do this? So you can either maybe type it in the chat, or raise your hand so that we can get actual participation in the presentation. I'm just gonna wait like a minute if anyone's typing. Okay, 2526 Crimson Robotics says for number 1, students who bring different experiences from many diverse backgrounds. Okay. So this can kind of be like an overall statement too, as far as like, we can see like within our own team, we do want to have like everyone have a different experience so that in general, the team can benefit from it.
right? And just tagging a little bit along with that. Sometimes there's going to be groups where you don't really hear their stories as often, even though, like, obviously every single group's story is important. So you want to go and not just focus on the easy things, but go out and really try to look for those groups that don't have a background that is represented as often.
Okay. I'm probably just gonna move on. Okay. As far as going, like pretty much covering over what we just talked about, who are our diverse populations, like Crimson Robotics said, they're going to be economic, or we want them from the diverse backgrounds. This can be people who are economically disadvantaged or females and minority groups that are underrepresented in STEM. So these people are gonna we don't, like, if you are looking at just a general basis, it's people who just by the numbers aren't represented enough within STEM. So just even being able to reach out to them is going to help not only your team, but also by raising their numbers within STEM. Okay, Lawrence, do you want to go over this?
Yes, I can start. So in terms of planning outreach, it doesn't have to be like, I just want to emphasize, this isn't like a very big deal where you have to like spend hours of your time planning things out, right? Obviously, at the very beginning of the season, something that or at the beginning of the school year, I'll put it that way, something that our team did was just set goals for what we wanted to do as a team. Maybe it might be outreach that we've already done in the past or ideas that we want to continue, right? And like the questions that we want to answer are, first off, what populations do we want to reach? Second off, like what age groups we want to reach? Third is where we actually want our outreach to happen, whether it be like just within Eagan, which is where our team is located, or beyond, whether it still be in Minnesota or within the US, or especially through our Robots Without Borders program, anywhere in the world. So, and finally, we also want to figure out what actually we're doing. And at the end of the day, just figure out how this ultimately affects the community as a whole.
I think one thing that is really important is to kind of like focus on a specific group, because if you are able to focus on a specific group, you're kind of able to attend to their needs a lot more than you would be able to if you kind of made it a more general thing. So like an example of this is kind of our within our wires program, we have the CCC, which is our Cookies College and Career, that focuses on girls being able to attend this panel that where they're able to learn from female professionals. If we made this more of a general thing, it wouldn't have, I don't think it would have as nearly as big of an impact as it did because we made it more specific.
Right. And just further on that idea, it doesn't, especially in terms of choosing what outreach you want to do, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? Like, it can just be something like, again, like events that are already happening in your area, right? Like, you don't have to do something crazy. You don't have to do anything extreme. It can just be going out and reaching groups that your team as a whole has decided to focus on. And obviously you won't be able to do everything that you've thought of. So just try to prioritize it, try to make sure you're targeting and trying to help out a specific group. That way you don't spread yourself out too thin. And something really important to remember too is that you don't want to just do it like before competition season or during competition season. Outreach should be something that your team should be doing throughout like the entire year, because obviously, right, like it's more than just trying to look good. You do it because it's something that genuinely helps people and grows their interest. And on that note, you also just want to keep note of and document what the outreach that you do, so it can be referenced back even like a year or two, or even 5 years from then.
Yeah, I know. Oh wait, Mrs. Peterson, you want to go back just one sec? As far as documenting your activities, I would suggest like even just setting up like a Google Sheets and keeping just like a list of everything you've done and include dates, who attended, how many hours, how many people you think were impacted by it. All this information is really going to help you down the line when you're trying to figure out your chairman's information, especially having proof of the proof of the event. I know now that they pretty much kind of want you to have some sort of proof of it, some like a sort of email or poster, some sort of thing that shows that you actually did this. By doing this kind of work ahead of time, it's going to save you so much time down the line. Okay, we can keep going. We're just going to kind of go over how we plan a couple of different events that we have hosted so that you can get an idea of what went into it. Something that we were doing about a year and a half ago, it kind of came to a halt with the pandemic, but we're hoping to get back to is our Pacer Center. The Pacer Center helps expand opportunities, enhance quality of life for children with disabilities. So we were running monthly workshops through them that focused on different parts of STEM. So a lot of different planning went into this. Usually I was one of the main people who was working on this. And for each workshop, I probably had to have it done 3 or 4 months done ahead of time in order to be able to talk to be able to get the materials and everything planned. Like you can see there's a poster that was made. All these things happened ahead of time. So for your events, you're really going to want to kind of plan these things out pretty far ahead, especially if it's something more official, because then once you get up to it, it's going to be a lot easier. Okay, you can go to the next one, Mr. Peterson.
Do you want to talk about some of the specific different programs you did there?
Oh, you can kind of see at the bottom some of the examples that we did. These are just a couple. Was the intro to coding, which focused obviously on kind of learning the very, very basics of coding. I think we did it was mostly like block coding and Sphero robots. And we had them program the robot to go through a maze, or I know we did jousting one time. Then we also did theme parks and physics, obviously focusing on physics. I know that they got to you can kind of see it in this picture actually. They got to make a roller coaster at the end of that workshop. There was a space exploration and scientific method. I think this workshop was one of my favorite events that we've ever done, mostly because I was able to be so creative with it. It was not totally focused on robotics, so I got to just kind of go crazy with it in a lot of senses. So I think giving yourself the ability to be creative within your outreach events definitely makes it a lot easier to do, because it makes it fun. And if you're having fun, then it's going to be a lot easier just to do in general. Okay.
Another thing. Do you want me to start with this? Yeah. Just to give a general outline of another thing that we've done in terms of our outreach is a soldering class that we did over the past year, where we were very grateful to be granted a First Equity and Access grant, because we essentially petitioned and filed out a request for a grant because we wanted to go and run classes for underrepresented groups, which we were able to do with the grant that we were given by First, because what we did was we ended up recruiting underrepresented students of color, and girls through our teachers at a middle school. And even though this was during the pandemic, we still found a way to do it. We did it virtually because we ended up assembling these kits, delivered them to the students' homes, and then allowed them to be done virtually. So even though we couldn't see them in person, we were still able to conduct our outreach.
I think one of the things that, if you're planning on focusing on a more students that are underrepresented, or people who are underrepresented in general, I think one thing to note is that you're going to have to take on a lot of the work prior to it. Like we said, we assembled these kits and we sent them to these homes, and we had to prepare a lot of stuff in advance. It was something we kind of had to do in order to make the event happen. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be talking about, it kind of goes in hand with this, because we used the last one. We use the same grant money to also offer classes for students at the Red Lake Indian Reservation. So this, the reservation's, I think it's like 3 hours away, or is it 6? Mrs. Peterson, how many hours is it away?
I want to say it's about 5.
Okay. It's not an short distance, let's just say. So it actually kind of worked out that people have become so familiar with Zoom. It gave us the ability to reach out to students who in the past we wouldn't have even really considered looking into, to be able to reach out. So we kind of recruited students through the robotics coach over at the reservation in order to get them involved and to join the class. So we kind of we focused on doing virtual training, like we said, due to the distance and the pandemic. And we also delivered these robot kits to the school and distributed them through their coach. I know that through this program, a lot of the students, obviously they got to keep their robots that they built, and they were kind of able to go on and use it for their own uses and what they wanted to use out of it. So I think that was something that was cool. As far as planning going into this, like we said, we had to assemble a lot of these kits for them. So we had to do a lot of pre-work for this event. Oh, what robots were in the kits? Oh shoot, what are they called? Robo kit or rocket kit? Rocket.
Yeah, ROKIT.
Yeah. I think did we find them on Amazon?
Yep.
Okay. I know that's actually a good example of kind of the work that went into it prior. We had to figure out how many students were going to be attending, and then, or how many we were planning on trying to have attend, and then figure out how much money we could delegate to these different kits, and kind of figure out then at that price range what kit could we get. So we already had figured out how many people we wanted, and then we set that price range. We didn't kind of do it the opposite way so that we cut off students. Instead of having like buying these pricey robots and then giving it away only to like 5 students, we decided to focus on how many students we could get and then supplying it to all of them. Okay, Mrs. Peterson.
Yeah, so this was a really interesting group that we worked with, because they have a lot of challenges up on the Red Lake Indian Reservation in terms of just getting the kids engaged in STEM programs. So that was a little bit of challenge just to get them recruited for the class. And then another challenge we had was around the internet. They don't all have really reliable access to the internet, or sometimes any access to the internet. So that was a little bit of a challenge as well. They did mostly have cell phones, but as we're trying to like download software code for the programs, we ran into problems where, we don't have internet today at where I'm here today, but I can get it at the school later, things like that, where it was just a few more steps to get where we needed to go.
And honestly, it was just good for the team. We'd argue that it was also good for us as a team to really like see those struggles, because in a sense it gave us it helped us in the sense that it gave us insight into the struggles of some of these students, which, just tying it all back to the whole point about underrepresented groups, these are things that we never had really considered before running these camps, and it was a good experience for us to go out, and even if it was a little harder, it was really important for us to understand that not everyone has the same experiences as us.
That's right. So one of the students who was doing the training for this said, I don't understand, how can they do, remote learning without the internet? And, what I said was, not everybody is even able to do remote learning. They might be, assigned reading out of a book and paper assignments rather than trying to do everything online, because that's not always an option for everyone. Okay, we'll move on to the next one.
So this last one is the FLL team at the Eagan Homeless Shelter. This one's actually we are currently doing right now. Funnily enough, some of our teammates are over at the homeless shelter right now working with our team in preparation for the FLL tournament happening this Saturday. But like I said, we were able to start an FLL team at the Eagan Homeless Shelter. We were able to do this mostly because of our previous work with this facility. We've worked with them in the past. I remember doing a like rocket launch camp with them, I think like 2 or 3 years ago. I know we sent over our STEM kits that we had created last year in order to get more students involved. We sent that to them and we were able to get them those kits. So I think it's through this previous connection to them that it was a lot easier to be able to set up some sort of team like this, and it made it a lot easier of a thing to do. I think that kind of speaks overall for any event as far as kind of keeping up through your connections. If you're able to keep a sustainable connection with a contact over the course of years, it's going to make your outreach a lot easier, because then it's not going to be and you're not going to have to spend all that time trying to build these new contacts over and over again. So by reusing these contacts in different ways, it's really going to diversify the different types of outreach you're doing, while also making it easier. So we coordinated it through the education specialist at this shelter. We were able to cover it through the Eagan Foundation, who gave us a grant. So some of the process also went into writing a grant in order to be able to get that money. So these meetings are, like I said, conducted at the shelter, and then we pretty much brought all of the supplies to them so that there's no pressure put upon any of the families to do this.
So another thing to note about this activity is that we had, I would say, kind of sporadic attendance from some of the students there. A few of them are pretty regular attendees, but some of the others are not. And, they do have people moving in and out of the shelter periodically. So, this was really not so much an attempt at trying to, get a really competitive team for the tournament, but more about just exposing kids like this to STEM, so that they have an opportunity to see how much fun it can be and what kinds of activities they have, and what kinds of things they might try to get involved in the future.
Mm-hmm. I know you were talking about, Mrs. Peterson, I know you were talking about, like, the other time you went, you were like talking to one of the girls there, and you could just tell that she was super invested in STEM, and it was something that actually really interested her. And you never know in these things where, like, would she have been able to get something like this if we hadn't been able to provide it? And would she pursue this interest later on? And would that be because of us? It's one of those things where you just doing anything you can to help really can just help down the line, and you never know what your impact really will be.
Right. And actually, the one you're talking about, she's in the picture here.
Oh, really?
And she's just really fun to work with, because she gets so excited about the activities and the programming and, the whole process around, how do you program the robot, and how do you, run the missions that you're trying to do and be successful at that. So it's a lot of fun for us to do, as well as fun for them, and learning experience for them as well. Okay.
Lawrence, do you want to go over this?
Yeah, I can start. Just fill in anything I don't mention. So obviously, right, the biggest part about outreach is that you need to have connections, right? You can't just do everything on your own, but just because you have to go and look for them doesn't mean that it has to be like the hardest thing, because first off, some people want to spread STEM, but don't have an FRC team to work with, right? Like, you can just look around your school, town, city, or local community. I promise you there are going to be people that want to make a change, but don't really have a team that they're working with yet. Along with that, you can also work with like the people along with your team. Sometimes there'll be parents or friends of the team that are willing to help the team in terms of its outreach, along with mentors, coaches, and teachers who might know people or just be people that could help support outreach. Along with that, sponsors, the people that help fund the team, and also local companies might be interested in either hosting an outreach event or working with you to to help you spread your message, and also other first teams, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to make an impact together. It's not like oh, you're a part of another team, we're not going to do outreach with you. You all want to be working together. So you just have to ask, like, who do these people know? Who can they connect you with? And who can those people connect you with? And work with that to just try to organize your outreach events.
I would also suggest that like keep continuing trying to make more connections, because you really don't know where these connections are going to lead you. I know one example of this is we have a connection with 3M. Mrs. Peterson and Mr. Peterson, our other coach, are connected with it, and it was through that we actually were able to set up or we were able to get in contact with the team in Poland. So that's an entire initiative was built on this one contact that we have. So I think it's very, like we said in this thing, super important to be able to keep continuing to make your connections, because it's going to really just open so many doors.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate the need to continue to make connections and stay aware of what is going on with your sponsors and other local companies. I know that companies like 3M and Medtronic and Thomson Reuters have very specific goals around supporting outreach to diverse communities and getting those student populations more involved in STEM. And so there is grant money available, there is support from those companies. And I think that's another avenue into how to get things done and how to make these things really happen.
Definitely. Okay, so we're just gonna go kind of a little bit over a couple more discussion questions. Once you read these, you can either type it in the chat or just speak out loud again, kind of like the last ones. Hopefully more people will respond. What does your team do to reach diverse students? And what other opportunities do you know, what other opportunities do you now see to reach diverse populations? So I can just leave it up in the air for a minute or two.
Cassie and Lawrence, I think the reason it's a little low is from what I can tell. You've got a bit of concentrated students in Crimson Robotics.
Oh.
They look like they might be typing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't tell. And then outside of them, you have maybe one or two others that I
Yeah.
can tell from the, just a heads up.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, I can see Crimson typing, so I was going to wait until their thing came in the chat.
Pressure's on now.
Oh, okay. Still trying to outreach students within our own school who don't know about STEM can be fun to them, for them. Excited to see your outreach to unhousing those with disabilities. We've tried to outreach local shelter. Okay. That seems really cool.
If you have a local facility in your city that has housing for homeless people or transient housing, one of the things we've done is just sometimes just one-off sort of camps. Like Cassie referred to the rocket camp we did. Cassie, do you want to give them some background on that? That's a little easier to do something as a one-day event rather than trying to go back multiple times.
Definitely. So something like that compared to something like we're doing with the Pacer Center is definitely a lot easier. Obviously, it's just like a one-off event that you kind of set up. You go there for 2 hours, you have fun with kids, and you kind of just get them to have a fun experience. I was actually able to attend that, and I remember we literally just it was just me and like 2 or 3 other people from our team and like 5 or 6 kids, and we sat inside and we made rockets and then we went outside and shot them off in the air, and that was it. There wasn't really much else to it other than learning a little bit about the science behind it, but just getting those fun opportunities, just like little tiny things are always just better than nothing, really.
So those were baking soda vinegar
Yeah.
rockets made with the small soda bottles.
Yeah. And the funny thing is actually, we already had like a somewhat of a supply of these bottle rockets already. So I know we made some, I think, with the kids, but we already had so much of a stock that I think we've actually done that event several times with different groups. I know we worked with the Girl Scouts in like 2019, and we pretty much did the bottle rocket camp with them as well. So it was pretty much the same thing, but we were able to reuse all of the work and preparation that had been going into with a different group. Crimson also says expand our girls in engineering and robotics program to our middle school in the district. I think that's definitely a great idea, especially with the middle school aspect, because kind of just starting it younger and younger really gives girls the opportunity to kind of see it before they kind of enter into a different community. Because sometimes when you're joining high school, you feel somewhat already disorientated. So by targeting middle schoolers when they're comfortable, it definitely, I think, is a good idea. Okay, we can move on to the next slide, which I think is.
Can I want to ask a follow-up question to Crimson. Their Gears program and expanding that to the middle school students. What are you doing to try to engage them? I'd be curious because we always have that challenge as well. And I know it's a tough, thing to figure out is how do you get them engaged before they can be on your team?
In Crimson, you can come off mute if it's easier for you. Anybody has that option.
I'm unmuted. Basically, host STEM events in the middle schools, like work with STEM stations and stuff, and also be able to host STEM speaker panels. So especially so that students can see that people like them are able to work in STEM and be able to work with these big companies and stuff.
That sounds cool. I think like you said, really making sure to give the middle school students an opportunity to see someone like them in some place that they and a place where they think this doing something that they think is cool definitely gives them the motivation in order to continue to strive for their goals. Okay, Mrs. Peterson, I think.
Okay, I just want to ask if there are any other ideas about what other opportunities or thoughts people have about how to reach diverse populations. We gave a few examples here, and we talked a little bit about girls. Are there other thoughts about how to reach economically disadvantaged or people of color? And I appreciate one of the comments from Crimson also was trying to get more engagement from within your school. And I think we struggle with that as well. We'd like to have, more students join the team from Eagan High School. So I don't know if there are other thoughts about how to reach some of those other populations.
Emily says, our team does have some time during the school weekday for students to participate in extracurricular like activities. This gives times for students who have work / help out with care of siblings outside of school hours. That's cool. What school do you go to? Or was that in? I've never really heard anything like that. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Washington Tech Magnet School. Okay. Looks like Crimson's writing something in the chat. So. Okay. Our team works with schools in our district to volunteer at STEM fairs in our middle school and elementary schools, as well as hosting interactive STEM activities in classrooms. I think that's definitely a great event to have for your middle school and elementary schools. Just like being able to just have kids be able to see just some of these activities is definitely something that can get them kind of hooked on the idea and allow them to kind of maybe push to pursue some of their interests in either in like an FLL team or just different camps that they're attending. So I think that's great work. Okay, Mrs. Peterson, I think we can go on to, there's any questions that you guys have for us? Anything that you guys want to say else other than that, I think we're good. So thank you guys for coming.